Hello and welcome to another edition of The Stew with JT Brew here on Fantasy in Frames. Tonight, me and Benny D, we're going to talk about college football playoffs part 2. So we talked about the playoffs last week. We're actually in action this weekend, so we're going to talk about any of the changes in the lines, anything that maybe have adjusted our mindsets of what we're betting and what we're taking. And obviously, bowl games, baby. We've got a game going on right now, so bowl season is upon us. Plus, we're going to talk about the awards ceremony. A lot of reaction to what happened this last weekend, who won, who lost, and who we were taking. Stick with us. We'll talk about it all here in the stew now.
You up on trades and why you move, you ain't designed to lose. Find you jumping over seemingly nothing, racking up points, makes the game a little more fun to watch. Can drop release, we started with the mock draft and now we making a mockery of the leaderboard. Quite obviously not a scrub, so start an institute, make evaluations like a commissioner do. It's to the point your wife make you watch in a different room. Update your roster and pick and choose when you get some news. Not much that we enjoy more than sifting through through new statistics to make it to our end zones through different routes. Universities, institutes, down to homies who click in groups. I introduce you to the stew with JT Brew.
Well, welcome in, Benny D. Thanks for joining me once again. College football season. We're almost at the end, but we've got some playoff action still to talk about. But before we get into that and the games and everything that's going on, let's first have some reaction to kind of what happened this weekend. College football award show, the Heisman Trophy. All that went down. Twitter's been blowing up. I've been in numerous arguments with people about it at this point. But let's jump in here and let's talk a little bit about what's going on with everything. Let's just jump off right off the bat. Let's hit the big dog. Let's talk about the Heisman. So Heisman Trophy, Colorado's Travis Hunter, two-way star, cornerback, wide receiver, ends up winning the Heisman vote. One of the closest votes. I think I saw the closest vote since 2009. Yeah. Overall, he had over 2,000 points in the votes. Also, same thing for Boise State running back Ashton Jeanty. So Jeanty, a lot of people thought he should have won it. He finished second. Cam Ward, the quarterback out of Miami, finishes third. And Dylan Gabriel, the quarterback from Oregon, the former Central Florida and Oklahoma quarterback, finishes fourth in the voting. Benny, before I get off in my crazy random rant that I'm going to go off on here after listening to some of the comments on Twitter this week, what did you think about it? What do you think about the Heisman? Who were you pulling for? And secondly, did you have money anywhere? Anybody that you were wanting to win on because of that reason? And who were you pulling for, and who did you think should have won?
I was pulling for our Colorado guy. I didn't really have money on the Heisman. I kind of wished I would have, because that's probably who I would have gone with, had I done that. And I know that you were doing it. I've done it the last couple of years leading up to this year, and I've not had any luck, because I always take like these long shot guys, and then it never goes my way, or somebody will just come out of nowhere that nobody was even talking about, and it usually gets me. But I was coming into the awards, I definitely was rooting, for Hunter, and he cleaned up, man. And I think he should have. I mean, honestly, we've been watching college football for a long time. No one's really ever had a season like that one. I mean, when you just look at, he was probably, and actually, according to the voters, was the best wide receiver in the entire nation, on top of being the best corner in the nation, all at the same time. I mean, no one's ever seen. We've seen some guys that have played both ways a little bit, but nothing like that, where they are literally the guy on offense and the guy on defense for one team. So I think deservedly he got, the awards he should have got. And like I said, I didn't really have anything writing on it, except for I did have the Doak Walker Jeanty, so I was pulling for that, and he won, and I think deservedly so. You could make an argument for a couple of those other guys. But man, he had, statistically had a monster season as well. So Honestly, I think the voting, I think they actually did a pretty good job. I mean, there's some years where you can, really say they screwed things up. I don't think this was one of them. I think they did a pretty good job selecting the right guys for the most part.
Yeah, I'm with you. I know there's a lot of debate, a lot of people calling, Travis Hunter, he's not the best wideout. He's not the best defense. He's average at both. How does he win the Heisman? And, I saw a lot of people making the comments about it's like not the most snaps you played. What does that have to do with anything? And I'm just like, did you people watch any college football this season? I'm like, any. Did you watch any Colorado games? Because people are like, oh, it's all hype. It's all hype because of Dion.
Yeah.
It's all hype because of Colorado. I'm like, this should be, instead of everybody ripping them on the hype, this should be one of the greatest stories we've ever heard in college football. You take a kid who ignored everyone, ignored the media, decided as the number one high school recruit in the country to go to Jackson State, Mississippi.
Yep.
HBSCU. Like, what? Like, he chose that, took Dion, a new coach, unheard of, believed in him enough to skip out on every major team in the country recruiting him, decided to go there, stuck with him, then followed him to Colorado. They went from a 1-11 team the year before Dion got there, and not even were they only 1-11. They were statistically one of the worst football teams in all of college football. They were historically bad. Like, this was a good team. They won, I think it was 4 games last year, finished 4-8. People ripped them. They're like, oh, they only won 4 games, blah, blah, blah. But they were in every game. They only won out a couple games. I think Oregon, hammered them, a few others, but they were in a lot of one-score games. People ripped on, all this hype for a 4-win team. I'm like, man, this is a pretty drastic change, like, in 1 year. Pretty good turnaround. They only won 3 more games, but they were in a lot of games. Then they come out this year. They finished 9-3 in the Big 12, just missed the Big 12 championship game by 1 game. Literally, the game Travis Hunter got hurt in, which tells you anything. The game he got hurt and missed most of the game was the home loss to Kansas State. If he does not get hurt, I think they probably win that game. Yep. And if they win that game, they're in the Big 12 championship game with a chance to be in the playoffs. And you're telling me a team 2 years removed from 1-11 had a chance to make the playoffs, and people are like, oh, like talking trash on them like they didn't make the playoffs. I'm like, the fact that they were even within a game to me is just
crazy.
Is insane.
It's
really
crazy.
And the amount of hate they're getting as opposed to being like, man, this is like a great story. Deion Sanders, a new coach, a Hall of Famer, comes out of nowhere, takes over the small, historically black college, makes them into something, and then takes a terrible Colorado team and makes that team into something. And people are just ripping him left and right, ripping Hunter, ripping his son, Shedeur Sanders. I'm like, did you watch this team play at all? They were a fun team. If people thought they were just a media darling and that's all they were, I'm sorry. You
it's
just weren't paying attention.
It's just the way the internet works, right?
It is.
It's right? The way people work. It's like as soon as somebody gets on a roll and something cool happens, everybody gets behind them. And then just as fast as they get behind you, they just want to burn you to the ground, man. And it's like, no, for no reason. I mean,
I know it's crazy, man. And by all accounts, Travis Hunter is like the nicest kid, like the 4.0 athlete, just absolutely great kid. Yeah. Everybody that knows him says he's the nicest kid. And it's like, man, people are just ripping him. And I'm like, what are you how are you ripping this kid? And again, everybody's saying like, oh, snaps played. That's not a statistic. Well, dude, do you know how hard it is to play one way in college and be really good, much less play both ways the whole time and be really good? I don't care what people say. That to me is an incredible feat. If he was just out there doing nothing, I could maybe be like, oh, well, he's playing both ways, but he's literally just in the way. Like, I could see you making a point, not a guy that's playing at it's astronomically high level on both sides of the ball.
You could literally take away, just pretend that he didn't even play defense and only look at his offensive numbers. And he had one of the greatest receiver seasons, probably broke, I don't know, but I'm assuming he broke a lot of records for Colorado.
Yeah, he basically broke almost every record Colorado had.
And he probably broke some, I don't know if he broke national records, there's probably some monster ones, but if you look at it compared to everybody else in the field for the season and just look at how ridiculous some of the catches he made were and how athletic this guy is, it's unbelievable. I've never really seen, I mean, he's right up there with anybody I've ever watched, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then, okay, go the other way, get rid of, just act like he didn't play offense, and look what he did on defense. And he's an absolute shutdown corner. And then if you play in zone, he's a menace. I mean, he's everywhere. He's not only is he knocking balls down, making interceptions everywhere, he's a tackling machine too. So it's like, I don't get these people that are saying it's all about the snaps played. It's like you can throw one side out and you still got to say the guy's one of the best you've ever seen. If you really watched him play, you know.
I mean, I agree. I mean, people. Here's the other thing: is like, I'm a huge stat guy, right? I love stats. I actually think stats get ignored a little bit. You know, I'm like, sometimes we should take these stats into account a little bit more. But I've never heard more people come out than this year and just be like straight stat people. Well, he led in this, he should have won that. You know what the hilarious thing was though? They were picking and choosing when they thought that you should use stats.
Right.
No one turned around and said, and this is my favorite. No one turned around and said, Kyle McCord should have won quarterback of the year, Davey Bryant Award, because he led the nation in passing yards. I didn't see one person, not a single person commented that he should have won quarterback of the year because he had the most passing yards. I'm like, but you said that Nash should have won wide receiver of the year because he had the most receptions and most yards. They were saying all these other people should have won this because they had the most of this, most of that. Now, granted, the NFL, when they do those awards, they give you the award because you have the best stats. Like the stat, it's not a voting. It's like you had the most, you run the rushing title because you had the most rushing yards. Yeah. You won the passing title because you had the most passing yards. Yeah. That is legitimate. But these are awards voted on by people, and it's not who had the most of something. It's the best.
It's harder college to say you can't just look at stats. NFL is
you can't just look at stats.
These are all professionals. In college, you're going to have a team, and you could say even Syracuse. I mean, they play decent competition. They're in a Power 5 league, but you can look at their schedule and go, okay, like, yeah, they can throw it 50 times a game and put up a whole bunch of numbers. And they won a lot too. So, I mean, you could make a real argument for that guy. But, I mean, there are instances where you're going to have like a non-Power 5 school that is going to absolutely put up – I mean, there was a kid for Hawaii that just put up broke all kinds of
Kentucky. I mean, Western Kentucky's had some monster years where the guys are putting up unreal stats. And I didn't hear anyone calling about like, oh, that guy should win the Heisman. He had the best stats.
Put him in there. Yeah. So it's like
all of a sudden, this is the first year I hear everyone coming out saying best stats. Well, the first I heard last year was when Marvin Harrison won the best wide receiver. He won the Benerick. And people were like, well, Roma Dunze has better stats. Malik Neighbors has better stats. Again,
they're voting.
We're talking about overall. He was the best wide receiver. Now, those guys were really good as well. I'm not debating, especially Neighbors had a hell of a year.
Yeah.
But you're also talking about a player on a team with a great defense who shut teams down, and then they weren't throwing the ball 50 times a game.
Yeah. It's a tough
so it's like he had good, and again, people were like, well, he only had this many catches, and this guy had 102 catches, and he only had 65. Well, he didn't need that many catches. They didn't need him late in games to be throwing the ball, chalking up stats. Again, sometimes I think people have to look at these like, again, I'm a stats guy. I think when it comes down to like a tiebreaker, I go with the stat on the tiebreaker and a lot of things, but if everything else is equal. But like some of these guys, you can't just go off pure statistical finishes. You just can't. Because each team plays different. If you're playing in a West Coast offense or throwing the ball all over the place, as opposed to a team that's running the ball a ton and getting you the ball in deep passing situations, they're not just peppering you with like 3-yard targets.
Right.
Then that's a big difference. So last year was the first year I really saw that with the Marvin Harrison Neighbors. I still think Marvin Harrison was the best receiver. I think he deserved the award. But that was the first time I really saw people going stat crazy. Then this year it's been off the charts stat crazy. It's like everybody's like, oh, this guy should be first. This guy should be that because he won this, he won that. I just don't. To me, I think stats matter. They should matter, but this is the first time I've really seen people coming crazy out on the stats. Like, again, and I'll break some of these down to you. I mean, I think part of the problem too is we're so used to video game stats now. People have played so many video games on that when these guys have unbelievable seasons, people are like, it's okay. And I'm like, no, that's like the best season ever in that school's history. And people are like, it wasn't that great. I'm like, because they're just so used to crazy numbers. Yeah. That people just the expectations are so unrealistic. So we'll break down Travis Hunter's stats here real quick, and then we'll get into GT and everybody. He had 92 catches, 1,152 yards, and 14 touchdowns. That's just as a wideout. That's phenomenal. Almost 100 catches, missed one full game and missed parts of another game. Over 1,100 yards receiving, 14 touchdowns, which I think led all Power 5 touchdowns. Like there was a couple guys in lower division had more, but he had 14 on defense. People were like, "Oh, dude, this is when I just didn't answer people or talk to people when they brought up defensive stats for him." I'm like, you understand how the cornerback position's played? If you have a million stats, if you have a ton of stats, that means you're not doing a very good job playing cornerback.
Right.
He had 31 tackles, 4 interceptions, 11 passes defense. And here's what I don't think people realize. He had at least 2 or 3 just highlight reel interceptions taken away for penalties. Like a guy was offsides or like somebody, they had too many guys on the field. I mean, he had a couple just unbelievable picks wiped off the board. He could have easily had 7 or 8 picks this year, which in college is insane. I'd have to go back and look what the NCAA record is, but it's like 9 or 10.
I'd like to see, I'm sure there's some you could probably get online if we really looked around. There's probably some people that have done some analytical type stats where it shows okay, how many times did teams even throw at this kid? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I know they do that in the NFL and they base a lot of stuff off of that, especially with corners, because it's well, look, they're taking away part of the field, and the statistics show it just based on the number of times the ball even comes in his direction. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
well, and I think the underrated thing for him too is I think that people don't realize if you watch him play defense, even though he's a lockdown corner, if you get him in zone, there's times that he's taking 2 or 3 wideouts away. Because he's close enough and he's fast enough to make a move to the ball that teams are afraid to throw in that direction. And when they did, he made a play on the ball.
Yeah. No, he's unbelievable, man. I mean, he's going to be.
He should be a top 5 pick.
Yeah,
I think he's going to be a top 5 pick depending on where he goes and how somebody's going to use him. But
I think they're going to play corner. It'd be crazy to see him play both ways in the NFL. But if anybody could do it, I think this guy could.
He's just a freak of an athlete. It's absolute crazy. And people are like, oh, he didn't lead the nation in one single category. Neither did a lot of guys that won awards didn't necessarily lead the nation in a category. He was 6th in receiving yards. He was 2nd in receiving touchdowns again. And this is going with some smaller school guys in there as well too. So to me, I just, it's pretty crazy when you look at you want to break down his receiving grades and his defensive grades. They were all top 3, top 4 compared to for PFF and some of those other grading sites that do those things. So when people are just on there oh, he was just mid at cornerback and mid at wide, I'm like, no, what are you talking about? He was clearly top 5 at both positions, probably top 3. Now you can make an argument maybe he wasn't number 1 at one of those positions either or, but I think you have to make an argument because he was right there. And I think there was some other really good wideouts and stuff, but Nick Nash was the big one because he led basically in every statistical category for San Jose State. We covered him a lot this year. While I think Nick Nash had a great season, did I think Nick Nash, just because he led the nation and everything, did I think he was the best wide receiver in the nation? I don't. And I think you're going to see that also when you come to the NFL draft. I think Nick Nash is not even top 5 NFL wide receiver. Maybe breaks the top 10. So again, sometimes I think you got to look at those things as well. But It blew my mind that people were just like, "Oh, he's not even good." If you break down, and again, I have to remind people this. I had to constantly remind people this. I was on some of the when I was back in my old newspaper days. I was on some of these committees where I voted for some of these things. Like our head editor at our newspaper at the Columbia Daily Tribune in Columbia, Missouri, he had a Heisman vote. Now he would have a meeting and we'd all get together, and he would take a poll between everybody in the office. Who do you think we should put as our top 3 for our Heisman? And we'd all vote, and then he would do a vote and turn in our Heisman vote that way. I voted on a couple other committees for other things and men's and women's basketball over the years. I was on I voted for the Naismith Award. We voted for some different stuff. So that's what people are saying. All these different votes for these different things are by different people in different committees. So that's why people are like, you see some people like, well, he won this award, but he didn't win that award. Well, it's different people voting. They're not across the board. Like every award has their own voters. The AP has its own voting for All-American.
Yeah.
So the coaches have their own voting. So again, when people bring it up like, well, he didn't win this award, but he won that award, there's a reason for that. You have different people voting for each one.
Yeah. And it's not an easy vote. I mean, a lot of times.
Oh, absolutely not.
You can make great arguments for a couple of different guys. So I think he should have won the Heisman. There's in my mind, I watched a little because of this podcast and us doing this. I definitely watched more college football this year than I did last year. And I've watched a lot of it over the years. I've just never seen a guy do what he did all around. In my mind, there's no doubt he's the best college football player this season. And that's what the Heisman is. So I think it was the right call on that one for sure.
And I think it was the right call as well. He was my Heisman vote. I loved Ashton Jeanty. I thought Ashton Jeanty had a great season. If he would have won it, I wouldn't have been against Ashton Jeanty winning it because I thought they were the best 2 players. I thought Hunter was the best player. I thought Jeanty was right behind him. Yeah. But if you look at it, Chuck Bednarik Award goes to the best overall defense player. Travis Hunter won that as the best defensive player in the nation. Now, did he win the best cornerback or the best defensive back in the nation? No, that one actually went to Jedi Barron from Texas. He won the Jim Thorpe Award for best defensive player or defensive back. Yeah. So those things, they end up being different sometimes. Now, Travis Hunter did win the Fred Biletnikoff, which goes the most outstanding wide receiver. I think he was right there. I think he won over Nash. The other guy that was there for me was Ted McMillan from Arizona. I love Ted McMillan. I think he's going to be there. But I thought Hunter was just as good, if not better, than McMillan was this year. So I thought he was fun. He was good there. And Travis Hunter won the Walter Camp for National Player of the Year award. So, that's the next one for, Walter Camp's kind of the guy right behind the Heisman. If you won the Walter Camp National Player of the Year, you were the best player in the country, regardless of offensive defense. So he won that one as well. So I think he deserved all those. We'll bring up, I was on Hunter at the beginning of the year. I put the bet in last December at the end of the season. I told everybody on this show, on the wrap-up show, that he was my favorite pick for Heisman next year if you wanted a long shot. And he was plus 7,500 on a couple sites last year if you would have got him early before the season started, which I did because I thought as the year got closer that the hype would start coming around him and it would go up. I got him at plus 7,500. I was pumped about that, hit that bet. So I was that was a nice little one in the win column for me. I was laughing. I answered a Big Cat from Barstool put on there that he had put a $5,000 bet on him to win the Heisman. Travis Hunter to win the Heisman at plus 4,000. So he had him at plus 4,000. I got him at plus 7,500. I was like, if only I had the balls or the cash to put $5,000 on that. Right. Benny, we'd be taking a vacation here, man, watching some games. I would have won over $300,000 if I had $5,000 on that bet to tell you how much I would have won on that. So I won some money, but it wasn't $300,000. It would have been phenomenal if it was that. So, but I did hit that. And I also, the crazy one I thought too, I actually took him to win the Biletnikoff. So
Yeah.
a lot of people are like, really? You took that? I was like, yeah, I got it at +2. I think it was +2,000 or +2,500 before the season started. I put that one in only like a month, like maybe a week or two before the season started. But I got him on that one too. So I was pumped. I hit both those bets. I did not see a preseason defensive player of the year award, so I did not get in on him on that one, but I did hit both those bets. So now that we've talked about him, let's jump into GT real quick. Ashton GT, just unbelievable season, led the nation in every rushing category there is. Just unbelievable talent from him. I think he's a really, really, really good running back. Me and you, we had talked about on the preseason show. We jumped on him at +750 to win the Doak Walker. So we both hit that one. So that was a nice, another nice win column for us on that one. He won that award. We got him at +750 for that. He was great. Again, tough to say. He would have been my second pick on the Heisman, so I had no problem if he would have won it. I actually re-jumped in on him knowing that I had Hunter at +7,500. I had re-jumped in when the odds got super high at GT at +3,000. So again, if GT would have won, I would, I had another bet I could have got back in and won some money on him. He won the Doak Walker as the best running back. He also won the Maxwell Award, which goes to the best all-around player. So that was another nice one that GT won. Just a great season out of him. Obviously want to congratulate him. Now we talked about Hunter, but I love GT. I love him next year for the draft. Hammering his player props all year. They got to one point, it was getting ridiculous. Like one touchdown was like minus 10,000. You had to bet like 2 or 3 touchdowns and almost 200 yards every game to even get reasonable odds against them. Just an unreal year by him. I'm super pumped to see what him and Boise State do in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I know. I mean, obviously they got the bye. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they're going to be able to hold up. I hope so. I think they can. I think he's that talented. I think he's, going to be a good NFL player. So it will be interesting. I'm looking forward to see what they can do. I'm hoping that, he can show out in the playoffs a little bit. That'd be fun.
Last couple of words we're just going to briefly talk about. I didn't have any. Cam Ward from Miami came back. Probably was going to be a late round pick. Ended up coming back. Wins the Davey O'Brien for National Quarterback of the Year. Great season out of him. I did not have a bet on him at the beginning of the year. He was one of the favorites. I did have a bet on Shadur Sanders to win the Davey O'Brien, so I missed out on that one. I had him at +2,500. He finished there in the tops in voting, but he did not win it. With Cam Ward actually winning that award. Great year for Cam Ward. The other big awards out there, John Mackey Award, Best Tight End, went to Tyler Warren out of Penn State. Tyler Warren was a guy I kind of got really excited about near the beginning of the year, and I started taking him in a bunch of C2C and CFF leagues. Really nice season out of him. That was the other big one that people were up in arms about is Fannin, the tight end for Bowling Green. Basically led every tight end in every statistical category, had over 100 catches, over 1,000 yards, just monster season for him. So that one, I think, the stat people were like, oh, you have to take him. I understand the people that voted for Warren. Warren's on a top 5 team. He was the best offensive player this year for Penn State by far. And they use him in a bunch of different ways. He wasn't just a tight end. He was blocking. He was running the ball. He actually even threw some passes. They used him a lot. That I didn't see any Mackey Award bets preseason as far as ones to bet on, so I didn't get on a Mackey Award. My long shot to lead the nation in receiving yards for a tight end was Mason Taylor from LSU, so definitely missed out on that one. Did you have any big thoughts on that one either way? I think Warren's going to be a top 12 fantasy pick. I know we talk a lot of fantasy as well on the show. I love Tyler Warren. I'd love to see Tyler Warren on the Colts. They missed out on Brock Bowers last year. I'd love to see Warren. I thought that was the other, probably the biggest one that people were basically arguing about other than the Heisman was that one was whether Fannin should have won or whether it should have been Warren.
Yeah. And that is a tough one because like you said, the voting is a little weird and you can make a really good argument, for at least 3 guys there. So, I mean, I wouldn't have been probably upset either way. I think I would have as much as I really like GT, I would have thought, man, Hunter didn't win the Heisman. That was he should have. Like, I would have thought he should have. If he hadn't won, wide receiver of the year, it would have been like, well, I could have made a really good argument for him to win it. But at the same time, I could see this guy winning too. So I wasn't shocked that Hunter won it, but at the same time, either one of those other guys, the kid from Arizona, they could have swung in there. And those two guys are going to be really high draft picks, and they're going to be, really good wide receivers in the NFL. I think both of them. So, it would have been. That's probably, and like you were saying, it was one of the closer votes, probably in a long time. So.
Yep, and then we had Will. Thanks, Will, for jumping on. So he says GT got robbed. A lot of people felt that way. A lot of people felt that way. Like I said, if GT would have won, I wouldn't have been, on the Hunter side, pounding, being like, this is garbage. I think they both were deserving. I thought Hunter, for me, should have won it. Just the season that he put together. I just thought, now while GT had a great year. He did. He had a phenomenal season. I just remember so many other running backs that have had great years too that weren't really in the talk. And then that's why I'm like thinking, I don't remember anybody really pushing hard for LaDainian Tomlinson when he had just an unbelievable year at TCU. I've seen some other guys, Marshall Faulk, I think going back to him, I think 92. Probably should have won it. He was unreal that year. He had over 2,000 yards, setting records. He wasn't in the mix. So I've seen a lot of running backs who had really good years. Just
it's tough for the running
pushed
backs.
aside there. It is, and the tough thing about it was, it was finally a year where it wasn't 100% QBs. Dylan Gabriel had a nice season. I don't want it to sound like I'm ripping on Dylan Gabriel. But I was glad to see the guy that was on the number one team didn't win it just because he was the QB on the number one team. You know what I'm saying? Because we've seen that happen a lot of times where we're like, oh, that guy played for the number one team, and so he had a nice season,
right? And
he wins it. And while I think Dylan Gabriel had a nice season, I don't think anywhere that he was the best player in the nation. I don't think he was the best quarterback because he didn't win any national awards. So that's the kind of thing I at least I was glad to see was between a running back and a wide receiver / defensive player. And it wasn't just necessarily a quarterback award, because that's I know you're a former quarterback, Benny, but as a former running back, I do like to see other people other than quarterbacks get a chance sometimes.
Oh yeah. No, I've already said I think Hunter was the guy, man, and he got it. So it's going to be fun. This is a crazy class. It's not probably as quarterback heavy as some classes we've had in the last few years, in terms of NFL. But some of these guys, man, are going to end up being unbelievable pros. I can tell.
Yeah, and Will said he says all about the money popularity contest. Well,
can be.
Heisman's always been about it being popular. Every school, he says, Hunter was pushed by Deion, Mina Darnold. You know what? But so is everybody. Everybody, every year they send out Heisman stuff and put up banners and do stuff. That's what the Heisman's all about. You got to pump up your guy. If you don't pump up your guy, you don't get any votes. That's just the way it is. It's true. You got to pump your guy. You got to, push for the Heisman. You don't just win it these days. It's the kind of the things works. And again, for all the people like, hey, they got a lot of media support, they also got a ton of bashing. So I think it's just as much as Colorado got support from a lot of people having the media on their side in a lot of situations, the media was also against them in a lot of ways. A lot of people were bashing Colorado a lot. Again, I understand people just like to tear people down, but I think it's just a great story. Coming out of nowhere, what they've done. I thought it was great. I think they're both going to be great NFL players. Pumped to see kind of where they both end up. Will says, I agree. The media literally fell in love with Colorado and their story. I think the love outweighed the bashing, though. I think it's probably true. I think, the love really came on strong, I think, at the beginning of last year. And then I think when they didn't win is where you saw a lot of the bashing going all off season. People are like, why are they talking about this team? You couldn't even win, couldn't even finish 500. So I definitely see, how that can go. And like I said, I saw a lot about that both ways. And I think that's a little bit everything on a lot of these words. But I just thought Travis Hunter, I mean, unreal year for people that say he's not a top wide receiver, defensive back. You did not watch college football this year. If you watched him play, there's no way you watched that guy ever and was like, oh, he's average. I mean, the guy's just he's an elite athlete. I don't care what he does. He's just a freak athlete. Will says, but JT, I still have to love Rashad Salam, baby.
Yeah.
I told you when I went to the Colorado game this year and watched them in person with Shador and Hunter, they were awesome. But Rashad Salam, dude, I was like, I tell you what, every once in a while, Will, I just get on the computer and I'm like, little Google search Rashad Salam jersey to see if I can find one. See if I can find one out there. I would love a number 19. I love a Rashad Salam. Bears. That's what I say. Benny knows Rashad Salam, a Bear draftee. Love Rashad Salam. That's great. So, all right, we talked about the awards. It's time to get into the bowl action. Let's talk about Benny here. We got about halfway through the show. Let's talk about some of the things coming up. The game we got going on right now in the middle of actions, middle of the third quarter, actually close to the end of the third quarter. Memphis right now at 35-23 on West Virginia. I told you guys last week I liked Memphis. In this one, it was -5. Eventually, I can't remember exactly where it was at when we talked on the show last week. It was somewhere in that range. I said I liked Memphis by a touchdown this game. It's down to 12, and West Virginia's trying to drive. This one got off to a big start here by Memphis. Memphis got up 17-0 in this game. Mm-hmm. Looked like they were going to blow them out, but Garrett Green, the quarterback for West Virginia, bringing them back in the game, had a 33-yard touchdown pass, then later a 56-yard touchdown run to get it within 20-14. And then a couple big plays going both ways. Mario Anderson, a really good story for Memphis. I really liked him this year. He got a touchdown run to get it up to 35-17, but then every time it looks like Memphis is going to put it away, West Virginia keeps fighting back as they scored again to make it 35-23. Like I said, right now, currently, I'm on West Virginia in this game. At the -5. I also did take a live money line bet on them as well. So that's the game currently going on. Benny, tomorrow night, we've got two games. I threw them in a parlay here with Memphis. We've got Western Kentucky 8-5 against 8-4 James Madison. Right now, James Madison is a 7-point favorite. The over/under 51.5. Excuse me. I jumped on James Madison in this game. I got it when it was -6. I like to get it right before we got up to the touchdown, but I like James Madison. And then UNLV. A lot of people leaving. Coach, all that stuff. Like, it's always tough. You never know what's going to happen when coaches move on, everything like that. But right now they're currently a 3-point favorite, over under 47.5. We talked about this last week.
Wasn't Cal favored? Like,
I was favored for a minute. No, they were favored, but it was low. It was like 2 or 2.5. And I was like, is this a trap game? I'm like, what am I talking? I'm like, how is UNLV not favored? Well, then it came out that California had a quarterback transferring and some other things jumped up. But this is a tough part of the year here. We kind of prefaced this last week on the show. We're like, hey, we're telling you what we like, but pay attention to what's happening before these games start, because we do have the transfer portal open right now, which has been a big issue. As teams who are in the playoffs, most notably Penn State's backup quarterback, who plays a decent amount, decided he was transferring, is not playing in the playoffs now. So that's a big one. So that's a tough one. The NCAA is going to have to look at. I don't think they thought guys would be transferring off of the teams that make the playoffs. All playoff teams, but they're going to have to look at that one a little bit. Yeah. It's up to UNLV -3. I jumped on the money line on that. So I've got Memphis, James Madison, and UNLV in a 3-team parlay.
I hopped on UNLV last week because I still like UNLV. I still like them at -3, I think. UNLV is just a tough team, man. They're they got some older players on that team too, and I don't see them not wanting to come out and win a bowl game. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I don't see them not taking it serious. They're going to be all in. They should be.
Yeah, California's been a really good defensive team this year. They've struggled a bit on offense, but they've been really really nice on the defense side of the ball. I think this one could possibly be a lower scoring game. But I do like UNLV even at the -3. I took him at the money line at -145. I just was like, I'm just going to take him to win it. But I would take that. I wouldn't mind the -3 either on UNLV. Over under is 47.5. I think if I was pushed on that, I could see the under. I could see the under on that one.
Pretty stout. So
yeah, both of them have been good defensively. I could definitely see. I would lean under in this game, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would definitely lean under. This Memphis game, we probably should have been looking over. It looks like obviously, hindsight's 2020, but I mean,
it's already at 58, and the over-under was 59.5. So we're sitting right there with a whole quarter to play still. So
yeah, and both those teams can put up some points. We probably should have been thinking about that, but I didn't get going with looking at these soon enough this week. Honestly, I didn't realize this game was going on tonight until this morning. I looked and I was like, oh my gosh, we got a real bowl game going on tonight.
A real game going on, yeah. So yeah, I've got it pulled up here on the TV. The TV next to me was thinking about live betting some of this, but we've been on shows all night, so I haven't had a chance to really dive into it. Jumping in later the week, there's a few games here we were talking about. It's a toughie, Benny. We talked about this a little bit last week. Bowl season used to be my absolute favorite. I love bowl season. It's gotten to be a little iffy because you don't even know who's going to play. Yeah. These coaches move teams. Now with the transfer portal, these guys are transferring before the bowl game. Other guys are sitting out. I'm getting really iffy on some of these games of whether I'm actually going to put any money on them because I'm just not sure who's playing and who isn't playing for some of these teams.
Yeah, no, it makes it really hard. I mean, I'm looking forward to these playoff games because I feel like, you can kind of take your opinion, you can make your side and roll with it. You're probably going to get, the Penn State backup quarterback thing's a little wild, but for the most part, those teams, you're going to get what you've seen throughout the season, and these teams are going to be 100% in. But you're right, man. Some of these games, they just don't mean what they used to mean. And these guys that are trying to transfer schools, I mean, they're looking at doing that for a lot of different reasons. I mean, it's their livelihood. A lot of these guys are trying to make it to the next level. If they think, a situation is going to be better for them somewhere else, they're gonna move. And I mean, how can you blame them? They're trying to make a path for themselves. But man, it sure makes it hard to figure out who's going to show up to these bowl games and who isn't,
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing for me. So that's the thing. So I was just going to bring up the Tulane game. We talked about it last week. They're like 13.5, 14-point dogs to Florida. And I was like, man, that seems like that's kind of like a toughie. I'm like, why are they doing it? Well, part of the reason is Darian Mensah, their quarterback, is already committed to heading to Duke. So he's taken off and headed to Duke. Yeah. And so, again, that's another one. Texas A&M, their quarterback, Connor Wegman, he's headed off to Houston. Some of these things I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Yeah. I know Duke has been better lately. Malik Murphy, their quarterback who transferred in from Texas, he's entered the portal.
NIL money, I guess, can play into it as well.
It has to be, and it has to be some of that because some of these places now Duke has been better, but they're historically a terrible football team, football program. But they have been a little bit better the last couple of years. But that, to me, Tulane is just as good as Duke, if not better. I mean, Tulane's been better than Duke.
How could the situation be much better?
Yeah, and so now you're bringing in some of these backup QBs who haven't played all year. I just don't trust it, man. So there's some of these games, like even though, like, okay, so he's leaving, I should probably jump on Florida. I don't know if I trust it. Unfortunately, I just don't know what's going on with some of these. It's got me worried. And some of these teams are. I'm just probably going to avoid a lot of these bowl games.
Not going to play in this bowl game.
Yeah. So that's like, so I think he's out. And so I think that's just some of the things where you start looking at and you're like,
makes it hard.
Do I want to be on that team now if they're like going to be changing? Like, I mean, changing a quarterback's a huge deal.
Yeah. And I mean, I do like the way Florida kind of ended the season. Their last,
and like I said, they've
3 or
looked
4
good.
games.
It was 14.
Yeah.
It's down to 13.5 on some sites.
Yeah.
And now I'm looking at that. I was all over Tulane, and now that I'm like their quarterback's gone, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want Tulane anymore because I love Tulane if he was playing at 14,
Oh,
at
yeah.
plus 14.
Yeah. No. And here's the deal. And Florida's trying to build something for next year, so they're going to be fired up. They're going to be all in. So, I mean, maybe the line makes more sense than we think. But that's the thing. I'm honestly probably not going to be putting in as many bets on these bowl games as I normally would. I'll be getting some action on these playoff games for sure. But
Oh yeah,
and there's a couple out there I like. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not gonna. I would have a hard time not firing away on almost all of them. Just a little something here and there just makes it fun to watch. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's just so
I have a
hard.
feeling a lot of these are going to turn into live bets. Like I'm not going to put anything early because I don't know what's going to be happening. I'm going to have to watch a little bit of it live and kind of figure out where teams are at before I jump in and start making plays. But that was one of the ones that we talked about, kind of jumped out to me. Jacksonville State against Ohio. Jacksonville State's head coach leaving, Rich Rodriguez, going back to West Virginia, taking the West Virginia job. So that one's I'm probably avoiding. A lot of craziness going around the Georgia Southern Sam Houston State game of who's staying, who's leaving. I'm probably off on that game as well. So let's just revisit here in the latter part of the show. Let's revisit a little bit of the playoff games this weekend that we had kind of talked about last week and see if we've kind of changed our mind on anything here. We got Indiana, Notre Dame. 7.5 point favorite right now are the Irish. Over under is 50.5. That game is at Notre Dame, which I've got a bunch of friends that live in Indianapolis. Like almost all of them are Notre Dame football fans and Indiana basketball fans. So like a bunch of them are like, ooh, who are you rooting for in this one? Because like a lot of these guys either went to Indiana or like grew up in Indiana, so they grew up Notre Dame fans because Indiana was so bad at football. So they grew up Notre Dame football fans, but Indiana basketball fans. So this is a great matchup. Indiana heading up, taking on Notre Dame at Notre Dame, possibly in the snow. Where have you changed your mind at all on whether you're on Notre Dame or on Indiana in this one?
Line hasn't moved, and I haven't changed my
steady.
Mind. It's been 7.5 all week. Really, I think since pretty much you might have been able to catch a 7 somewhere at some point, but I'm still going to take Indiana in the points. I just think Indiana's too good, and I do think the matchup is fairly decent for them. I think both teams are obviously they're Midwest teams, and they're the elements. They're both kind of run heavy teams too, so I don't think the elements are going to be a big issue for either one of them. I just think it's going to be one of those. It should be a good game, man. I cannot see this game being more than a possession game when it comes down to it, unless there's some crazy turnovers. Obviously, college football is wild. You never know. There could be, some weird things happen in these games, but I got to take the points in this one.
I think I'm with you. I'm on Indiana 7.5. This just seems like this is going to be a battle.
Yeah,
it's going to be an absolute battle. I think this game is going to be close. Indiana's head coach won the National Coach of the Year, which I think 11-1 in making Indiana a playoff team in the first year is just insanity. What he's done there. I mean, that's granted the schedule for the Big Ten worked out for him well. The way that it worked out this year, they got the favorable schedule from the schedule gods, but they did what they had to finish 11-1. Their only loss was to Ohio State. Notre Dame, their only loss, that really bad loss in week 2 to Northern Illinois. But since then, has just been absolutely tearing people up. I'm with you on this one. I think I got to stick with Indiana 7.5 on the points. I can see Indiana winning this game. And anytime I can see the dog winning the game and the points are over a touchdown, I got to take the points.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a crazy matchup. I'm really looking forward to this one. I mean, I think both these teams too are very a lot of times in college football, it becomes, I don't know, you get a couple of superstars on certain teams. I mean, these are both really teams, you know what I mean? And football is a team game, and this are two really good, solid football teams, man. It's gonna be a war, this game, I think. So
yeah, I agree with you. And the winner of this one goes on to play number 2 seeded Georgia in the next round, just in case people were wondering on that one. The next game, SMU Penn State 11-2, SMU 11-2 Penn State. 8.5 right now for Penn State, over under 54.5. This one I keep going back and forth on because I'm like 8.5 seems like a lot of points. I like Penn State to win this game. I think Penn State's defense is a lot better than SMU's seen all year. The question is, can Penn State step up on offense when they need to? That's kind of been the thing that's held them back in the last couple of years. In the Franklin years, is the big games. It seems like they don't show up on offense when they need to. They finally put up 37 in the Big Ten championship game against Oregon, but they gave up 45, which I did not see 80 plus points being scored in that game. I would have not been on the over in that game. I thought I'd been a little more close to the vest there, as Penn State, it literally had been shutting everyone down this year for the most part, and then gave up a season high 45 to Oregon. Obviously, SMU is going to be all over that film, watching what Oregon did, trying to do the same type of things that Oregon did to kind of get the advantage there on Penn State. To me, up at this game, with it being at Happy Valley, SMU has not seen that type of atmosphere this year. I think Penn State gets this one done. The 8.5 has me a little scared. Yeah. I'm probably putting it in a parlay, and I'm probably trying to either tease it down, take a full tease, take the 6 points and get it down to 2.5 for a 3-point win, or put it in a parlay where I'm going to move it down to 6 and hope that they win it by a touchdown. But even then, I think I'm going to be sweating that out. So I probably should take the points, SMU and the points, but I told you I was hoping it would get higher, and then I could jump on SMU. But man, this one feels like right in the middle for me currently.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm on Penn State here. I just think the fact that they kind of got embarrassed on defense last week against Oregon almost makes me like Penn State even more. You know what I mean? Like that's gonna be a salty taste in their mouth from getting just worked, last week by Oregon. I don't know, man. I'm on Penn State. I just think Penn State 8.5 might be too many. It might be a little bit closer than that, I guess, but I'm either laying the points or, like you said, I'm gonna either tease or just take Penn State on the money line in some kind of parlay, because I think Penn State's gonna move on. I just do.
Yeah, and Penn State, the winner of this one, Penn State SMU, plays the number 3 seed Boise State at Boise State. So that would be a real interesting either Dallas, SMU taking off from Dallas to go up to Boise, or Penn State traveling cross country take on Boise State would be a really interesting matchup in the second round. That is for sure. The next game here in this first round of the playoffs games, Clemson 10-3, the ACC winner, number 16 in the nation. Number 3 Texas 11-2, 11.5. Texas is the favorite, over on 51.5. This one's going around. I'm on Clemson 11.5 in this game. I don't know why I believe so much in Clemson. I don't know if it's because I believe less in Texas, and I don't know why that is. But man, Clemson, it's like everyone's been dogging them. They've had to fight uphill all year. No one thought they were going to win the ACC and get the playoffs. Now they get in. I think Clemson. I'm actually going to put money on a money line on this, because I think Clemson wins this game, but I'm definitely on the points. I think Clemson keeps this one fairly close. Even if they do lose, I don't see them getting blown out in this game.
None of these playoff lines have really moved much now that we're looking at them.
They've sat pretty solid.
Yeah. I think maybe Texas was 10.5. That might have gone up a point. So I think if you like Clemson, you could definitely just kind of wait on that one until closer to kick and maybe get get another point even if you're worried about it. But I think this is going to be a close game. And like you said, I could see Clemson pulling this thing off, man. I really could. I was just looking at some weather for these Big Ten games, these Midwest games that are going to be, you got Notre Dame, Penn State, and Ohio State all at home. And it looks like it's going to be relatively cold Friday and Saturday, but it doesn't look bad. There's not going to be, wind or snow. And if it's, right around 33, 34 degrees, that's not horrible football weather. There should still be, it should still be playable for those games. I was just kind of checking that out, but obviously Texas is going to be, it's going to be nice there. But yeah, I'm with you, man. I like Clemson here. I just think we kind of talked about it last week. I hate to, you can't even really say Clemson could be like that Cinderella team because they're Clemson. But the way the media has kind of portrayed Clemson and everybody's kind of, crapped on Dabo. And I'm not a big Dabo Sweeney guy myself, but, he's got that chip on his shoulder right now. And I think the whole team does, So they got it going on, and they're going to.
Yeah, I think Klubnik's playing pretty well, and I think everybody's kind of. The question is, if Texas struggles a little bit, do they hear it and hear Arch Manning and be able to start asking for him to get in for Ewers? So it's just going to be interesting. I don't know why I got a feeling about Clemson in this one. The winner of this game goes to number 4 Arizona State. So that would be a nice one. So whoever wins gets to stay in that kind of that warm area there and head to Arizona State. The last game we've got before we talk about it, just a couple bets to finish off the show here is we got number 9 seed Tennessee against the 8 seed Ohio State. Currently, as you're looking at that one, Ohio State 10-2, Tennessee 10-2. Ohio State 7.5 point favorite, over under 46.5. I was hoping we'd see some money go on Tennessee so I could get Ohio State a little lower, and it just hasn't happened. I was trying to get Ohio State under 7, and it just doesn't look like that's going to happen.
I know. I'm with you here too. I'm on Ohio State here. I wonder if points aside, if you just took Penn State and Ohio State money line parlay, just the two of them, if that would get you closer to even money. I don't know. I just think those two teams are most likely going to move on, but. It could be fairly close, man. Tennessee can be dangerous, that's for sure. But man, Ohio State's defense is good. And
two really good defenses, man. 10.92 points a game, 3rd in the country for Ohio State. Tennessee 13.92, 8th in the country in points given up. So both these defenses have been pretty stout most of this year.
Yeah. These are going to be. It's going to be fun, man. I'm really looking forward to this weekend for these games because we've been wanting to get an expanded playoff for as long as I can remember. So it'll be fun to see what happens.
Will jumping in, you're talking about the weather. He said, you want to talk about cold weather games. Will's from Canada, where our guys up north. He says his university finally had a final, was decided in minus 40 degrees Celsius weather with wind chills to minus 50 in the Celsius. That's a rough one down here as you're looking about 30 degree difference. So that's still negatives for all you people that can't do the math into the Fahrenheit. We're still in the negatives there. He's like, that's extremely cold. I agree with you there, man. Now, I used to like playing in a little bit colder weather. I didn't mind a little snow because I was so hot when I played. Like, I didn't mind it being a little colder. But those are extreme.
You get down that cold though, man. You can't even feel your hands. And that football becomes a rock.
Oh yeah, that's the thing is the football just becomes an absolute rock. So as we talked about those early games. Here's an interesting bet I found on FanDuel, Benny. You can actually jump on right now, and you can not only bet teams to win the first round game, but you can bet them to make the semifinals. So, like, if you think a team can win 2 games, you can bet right now. Couple ones I thought were interesting. I'm not going to break down every one, but I'll jump in a couple that I thought was interesting. You can get Clemson right now to make the semifinals, which means they beat Texas and they beat Arizona State to make the semis. You can get them at plus 640 right now. Georgia right now to make the semis is minus 136. Penn State's minus 184. And Ohio State is plus 172. If you want to throw those together in a 4-team parlay, they're actually letting you parlay them on FanDuel right now. You can pick the 4 teams to make the Final Four. So I'm picking Ohio State, Penn State, Georgia, Clemson to make the Final Four. It's a plus 5,291 right now on FanDuel.
Wow.
Plus 5,291. $10 bet gets you 520. $20 bet gets you over $1,000. $100 bet wins you $5,000. So I've got that. So you can mix and match those. So if you all have a FanDuel account and you're out there listening, go ahead and jump on there. Look at the playoff specials and kind of play around with some of those teams you think might make the Final Four before the first game start, and kind of maybe jump on those odds. So I saw that one, Benny.
Cool.
I like that one. I thought it was a kind of a cool concept, as you can take them early with higher odds here to get them to win a couple games. So I jumped on that one, and that's my pick for everybody. Once again, it's I'm picking a 4-pick parlay to make the college football Final Four. I'm taking Clemson at plus 640. I'm taking Georgia at minus 136, Penn State at minus 184, and Ohio State at plus 172. That 4-pick parlay is plus 5,291 currently on FanDuel.
I like that. That's really cool. If anybody out there who thinks they got a Final Four that they really like, I mean, that's going to be a pretty tasty parlay, pretty juicy, no matter who you decide to throw in there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like that a lot. That's cool.
Benny, I don't know if you have a pick for this week. If you got a Plums bet, I'm putting together real quickly here my 4-pick JT Parlay play of the day for the semifinals. I'm going to do a 4-pick parlay. I'm putting it together currently here. I'm going to tell you guys what I got as my odds. I've got a 4-pick parlay currently on FanDuel. It's Indiana plus 7.5. I'm moving the line from Penn State from 8.5 down to 5.5. So I've got them at minus 5.5. I'm taking Clemson the points at 11.5, and I'm moving Ohio State from 7.5 down to 6.5. You can get a 4-pick parlay right now on that for plus 869 on FanDuel. That's Indiana plus 7.5, Penn State alternate line at minus 5.5, Clemson 11.5, and then Ohio State alternate line down to minus 6.5. That's my 4-pick parlay. JT Parlay play of the day at 869.
I like it. I'm going to go ahead and roll with my Hoosiers, which pains me to say that, but it's not basketball, so I can roll with the Hoosiers.
They're an underdog in football, so you can like them a little bit more than we can in basketball, right?
And a lot of these bowl games are going to be we're going to be on next Tuesday, and we can talk a lot of these ones that are, there's most of these bowl games are going to be next week. So for this week, I'm gonna go take the points. Give me Indiana plus the 7.5, and let's roll with the Hoosiers.
I like it. That's the field of my Plums. Benny D, pick of the week. Indiana Hoosiers. You're taking them plus 7.5, correct?
Plus
that's 7.5
right now.
Yep. So that's what we're gonna get. So that is going to do it for us here. We're just past the hour here on the Stew with JT Brew college betting show. Playoffs, first round, part 2. We talked a little bit about it last week, jumped in, talked a little bit about it more this week. Feel free to check us out and everything on Fantasy and Frames. Go to fantasyandframes.com. Also check out their YouTube page. Please go follow us on Spotify. All these are downloaded on Spotify or any of the other places where you listen to podcasts. You can download those and re-listen to them later on. We're usually here almost all the time, Tuesday nights, 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 Central Time on Fantasy Frames. Thanks for joining us here on the YouTube channel. We always appreciate everybody watching, the people that jump into the show, leave comments, tell us your bets, those things. If you got comments and questions throughout the week or just kind of want to chat it up about your thoughts on some bets throughout the week, you can always hit me up on Twitter or the X at JT Orange, and you can hit up Benny at Ben Dyer 8. So Ben Dyer 8 on the Twitter machine. But we appreciate Benny. I'm looking forward to these games coming up this weekend. And again, the nice thing is we got these games this weekend, and then next week we get to talk about a bunch more bowl games. Hopefully at that point we know who's playing and who's not playing, so we can have a little bit better idea where we want to put our money for some of these bowl games. But at that point we also will know who's in the second round of the college football playoffs. Is going to get even better. I love the fact that we got a whole month of action here to finish out the college football season. It's fantastic.
That's great. Looking forward to it.
Thanks again, everybody, for joining us. May all your bets hit and the trade never quit. We'll check you next time on The Stew with JT Brew on Fantasy and Frames.
You up on trades and why you move. You ain't designed to lose. Find you jumping over seemingly nothing. Racking up points makes the game a little more fun to watch. Can drop release. We started with the mock draft and now we making a mockery of the leaderboard. Quite obviously not a scrub. So start an institute. Make evaluations like a commissioner do. It's to the point your wife make you watch in a different room. Update your roster and pick and choose when you get some news. Not much that we enjoy more than sifting through through new statistics to make it to our end zones through different routes. Universities, institutes down to homies who click in groups. I introduce you to The Stew with JT Brew.